Welcome back. Today we're breaking down a really powerful idea about where political power should truly lie in America and, how the fight over our schools is right at the heart of that entire debate. So let's just dive right in with a huge question. Who should be calling the shots in your community? Should it be a centralized government far away in Washington, D.C., or should it be the people right there, in the states and towns themselves? It's a question that really gets to the core of what the American experiment is all about. Now, the source material we're digging into today bases its whole argument on this philosophy of political decentralization. You've probably heard it summed up with the phrase, think locally, act locally. So what does that actually mean? Well, at its heart, it's all about federalism. The source argues that the state and local levels are where the real nitty-gritty work of governing is supposed to happen, in a way that actually reflects the unique culture and values of all the different communities across the country. Okay, so why is this such a big deal right now? Well, the argument we're exploring is that a whole lot of America's current political anxiety comes from a system where the two main political forces are both, in their own ways, trying to grab more central control. And this is where things get really interesting. The source basically says, forget left versus right for a second. The real conflict is between two competing ideas for a powerful central government versus a completely different path, a truly decentralized republic. The source calls both of the main forces progressive because it sees them both as wanting to centralize power in D.C. They just want to use that power for different things. Look, this isn't just some high-minded philosophical debate. The source argues that this fight is happening for real, every single day, in a place we all know very well, our schools. Yeah, just think about it, right? All those heated arguments over DEI or what's in the history books. The source says that schools have become ground zero. It's where you can really see that clash between what a local community wants and what some central authority is trying to push on them. So, to back all of this up, the source goes way, way back, all the way to the folks who actually ratified the U.S. Constitution. And the argument is that what they originally intended was crystal clear. To really get this, we have to look at the debate around the Constitution itself. You had guys like Tench Coxe who had to go out and promise the states, hey, don't worry, this new federal government isn't going to be all-powerful. He even went so far as to spell out exactly what it was never meant to do. And this right here is the quote that the source says was at the heart of that promise. Coxe flat out argued that the internal business of any state, whether legislative, executive, or judicial, was supposed to be completely off-limits to the federal government, period. And these weren't just vague promises. I mean, look at this list the source highlights. Coxe specifically said Congress cannot set up state schools, it cannot regulate city police, it cannot build internal roads. The message couldn't have been clearer. Local issues were meant for local government. Okay, so let's fast forward more than 230 years, because the source argues that this exact same debate is flaring up right now in a very modern and, pretty intense new arena, the fight over school choice.
And we are not talking about some small fringe movement here. Just look at the numbers. The source notes that by July 2025, we're looking at an estimated 1.3 million students participating in school choice programs. That's a 25% jump in a single year. That is huge.
So what's driving this? Well, it lines up perfectly with polling data the source cites, which shows public confidence in the traditional system has just cratered. Only 13% of Americans are giving public schools an A or B grade. That's an all-time low. And here's another thing the source really emphasizes. When you get down to it, this isn't the partisan issue you might think. Support for letting parents choose is actually strongest among Black and Hispanic communities, groups that are often seen as reliable Democratic constituencies. So you can see how all of this has created a massive political showdown. You've got parents and reformers on one side pushing hard for more options. And on the other side, the source points squarely to powerful teachers' unions as the main institutional force, fighting to keep the current system in place. And this isn't just a war of words, it is escalating into the courtroom. We're seeing teachers' unions filing lawsuits in states like Wyoming, Utah, and Missouri, trying to shut these programs down. The legal argument is often that they unconstitutionally divert public funds away from the traditional school system. But according to the source, this isn't just about educational philosophy. At its core, it's a fight over money and power. Because school funding is often tied to enrollment, when a student leaves a public school, the funding follows them. The source uses the really pointed term gravy train to describe the system that it claims the unions are fighting to protect. So when you pull back and look at the big picture, the source is really presenting this intense battle over schools as something bigger. It's like a proxy war for a much larger question about the future of how America is even governed.
So here is the main takeaway. The source is saying that it doesn't matter if you're looking at Tench Cox in 1788, arguing about federal limits, or parents in 2025 fighting for school choice. The underlying debate is exactly the same. Who gets to decide?
Now, the source makes a really powerful case for local control as the answer to our political divisions, but it leaves all of us with a final, very challenging question for the world we live in today. In our modern, interconnected era, is more local power the solution we need, or could it actually become part of the problem? That's what's really at stake.